Kip, what's up, man? Good to see you. Hair looks great today, by the way. Your hair is
Yeah,
looking great.
get a little scuff on the
What
side of my
what's
face.
this? What is this
Yeah,
on the right side of your eye right here?
I use my head in jujitsu too much, and I constantly like once this starts. What mark my word? Once this starts, that will be a scab for months because
Don't
it'll
do
get
that.
easily agitated every single time I train, and I'm not willing to stop training. So now
All right.
I have like
Good
this
to know.
permanent scar on the side of my
I'm going to
face.
your right side next time we train. Good to know. Thank you.
The funny part, this is not even a gi rash. This is no gi smash my face rash.
Hold on. Hold on.
Oh,
We got a malfunction. A
oh,
technological malfunction. Hold on. All right. I think we're good. What is that Red Bull you're drinking? Oh my goodness. Okay, so there's a little something on my eye too, right here. You see it right here?
oh yeah.
It's a sunspot because I don't use my head during jujitsu. I do it right.
I use the side of my head all the time. I don't know.
That's
Bad
why you have
habit, maybe.
cauliflower ear, bro.
Jolie, I used to think it was from people grinding my ears. No, it's from me
It's from
grinding my
you.
ears on people.
From you.
Yeah, I swear,
Okay.
I create it more than they do. So,
I was
and yeah,
talking
how
with
you
Pete
doing,
the other
man?
day about
Oh,
cauliflower ear, and he's like, "Well, I don't have." He's been training for a long time, longer than you. I mean,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
that's not like
No,
he's
he's
been
been
training for a
around
very
for
long
a
time.
long time. Yeah.
And I'm like, "Why don't you have cauliflower ear?" He's like, "Because I protect my head, bro." I'm like, "Got it. Fair. That's a fair response."
So now you're like, I hope I don't get cauliflower ear. It's gonna give me shit forever. Yeah.
Dude, I've been dealing, you guys know this torn bicep.
Yeah.
Look at
How's your
that. Look at
bicep?
that
Oh
shit,
yeah,
man.
that's getting
Bro, that's a
better.
week.
Yeah.
Better. It looks amazing. Guess what Ryan's doing tonight? He's going to jujitsu.
Deadlifting. Who cares?
I already deadlifted. Bro,
I
I
know.
my son was like, Dad, I bet you can't pull as much as me. He's 14. I'm like, how much you
And the
pull?
ego kicks in. You know
And
what?
he's
I don't
like,
care that I'm injured.
I can pull 265. That's my record. I'm like, 265? What? So like a little boy weight? All right. So I threw up 265 as warm-ups. That's not true, actually. I was like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. And we got to, I think the other day I got to 315. I I don't like saying this. I'll be honest. I'm probably like if I had a one rep max, I'm thinking maybe like 360, 370, somewhere right in there. That should always be 2 times your body weight. So I'm thinking like somewhere right in there. I pulled 315 and I was like, okay, I'm done. It hurts. Like it hurts my pec. This pec right here on my left side is like way bigger than my right side. So I
So
think I
maybe
need to
you
go
jacked
in.
your pec a little bit with the
Yeah, I think I need
bicep.
to go in. It's bigger, like
Yeah.
visibly, noticeably bigger. So
Well, you keep playing with it and it's going to keep doing that.
I keep tweaking my nipples like this, and my pec just like gets bigger. I don't know. I don't know what's going on here.
What Ryan's not telling you guys is the next morning he didn't get out of bed.
Don't worry about all that. It doesn't matter
I threw my
because
back
really,
out.
what we're talking about is how much you can lift, not how quickly you can recover after the fact.
Yeah, that's a whole other bag. Yeah.
So I will
It's
say
funny.
today, we'll get into questions here in a second. I will say today, I'm fired up. I posted something about homeschool. Actually, I made 2 posts about homeschool today, and my wife sent me a message because I was out running errands, and she's like, I see you're pissing people off early this morning. That's exactly right.
Do people get
So
mad when you make posts about homeschool?
oh, bro,
What's the typical reason they're angry?
well, I'm going to do a Friday field notes this week about it. So make sure you tune into that if you are interested in a deeper discussion. But there's usually 2 or 3. Number one is not all parents are in that position, or not all kids can get homeschooled by their parents. That's number one.
Because
And I realize that.
we've relied on school as a babysitting tool, and they're not in a position to be able to do homeschool because they need to work. Is that
Correct.
okay?
Correct. Yep. So 2 parents working. And look, I'm not going to judge that. I get it. If we look
Yeah.
at Biden inflation, I mean, Come on. You're paying 30% plus more for everything. I get it.
Yeah, we all might need a
I
start.
get it.
Yeah.
Totally get it. This is Biden's fault. Okay. I'll be real. This is not Putin's price hike. This is Biden's fault. And some of you people listening voted for Biden, and it's also your fault. You can take that. So I get it. Okay. So that's one. Hey, we can't afford it. I get it, but work towards it. You might have to sacrifice. You might have to let go one of the cars. You probably, like, if we look at the statistics, as a family, you probably own more than 2 cars. How many cars do you own, Kip?
I probably shouldn't say.
No, just say it.
4 cars.
I own
and a bike.
I own 3. And what?
We don't need 4.
No.
And a bike, and we don't need 4.
So you have 5.
What I'm saying.
You have 5 vehicles. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that to put it on you. Like, you guys have created the life that you want, but like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. We have 2 vehicles. Excuse me. We have 3 vehicles. One's being restored right now. And we have 2 street legal bikes, dirt bikes.
Yeah.
So we've got like 6 vehicles. Okay. The average consumer owns more than 2 vehicles. What would $10,000 or $20,000 in your bank account mean?
Yeah.
For you, it's okay. For me, it's okay. But for the people who are like, well, I can't afford it. Well, how many cars do you own?
That could be the difference. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. How many subscriptions do you own? How much bullshit and baggage do you? I know you want to talk, but like, how much shit do you own? And then simultaneously, you're going to say to me, well, like, I can't homeschool because I don't have any money. Well, no shit. You've been buying 6 cars. Of course you don't have any money.
Totally.
All right, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I've always been bothered by, because we were pretty poor being raised when I was being raised. And it always shocked me when you would see like another poor family that had like cable TV or even TVs and like game consoles and other things. And they were still asking for help. I never understood that.
What about,
because I was like, well,
people?
Sell your TVs first, right? Like, sell these other things you don't need. But
you're right. What about fat poor people?
Yeah.
Like, how can you be fat and poor?
Yeah.
That's what we would call the technical definition is an oxymoron. I'm fat as fuck, but I'm poor. Oxymoron.
Yeah.
That you ain't
My
poor,
kids don't
bro.
have food. Yeah, but you're overeating. Yeah.
Okay. So come on now. So I'm fired up. You can hear it. But my wife was like, hey, you're getting started early or whatever. Yeah, you're damn right I am. Because I got a problem with what's going on with the public school system. And this is what I said to her. And she laughed because she knows me, almost 2 decades being together. Go ahead.
So you gave 3 reasons why people typically complain. One was they can't pull it off because of their financial circumstances. What's the other 2?
The second is they won't be socialized.
Oh, yeah. Okay. They're afraid their kid won't be socialized appropriately. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And you know my kids.
Yeah, I know. Well, I don't buy into that. I have a brother that has homeschool kids. We actually homeschooled Kiabe for a few years, but I do think that's a trend. People assume that, you know what I mean?
It's an outdated line of thinking because when you and I were in high school, I just turned 41. So what's that? 22, 23 years ago, like 27 to 23 years ago. So like a quarter of a century ago, the homeschool kids were freaking weirdos, man.
I started laughing because I knew exactly what you're going to say. It's like, yeah, actually homeschool kids used to be odd.
They were freaking, no, that's nice. You said it nicely. They're freaking weirdos.
Yeah, that's funny.
Okay. Today, like, my kids, I got 4 kids.
Yeah.
My kids can hold the room with the best of them. My kids could sit at a table. My oldest in particular could sit down at a table with 700 men and hold the table.
Yeah.
Tell jokes and stories and laugh and tease and mock and play and engage with the best of them.
Totally.
All right. So there's this. So what did I say? There's the, hey, two parents need to work. There's the socialization issue. The last issue that I hear all the time is like, well, you know, that's nice for you, but some kids, bro, I'm not talking about some kids.
What do you mean some kids?
Well, what they'll say is like, well, but some kids don't have a parent. Some kids don't have two parents in the house. Some kids are.
So
I'm not.
Okay. So we're going to grab the exception to the rule.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not even talking. I'm talking about you. Does that apply to you? You think when I talk to you that I'm saying, well, some kids, I'm talking to you, bro. You.
Yeah.
So what are you saying to me? You're either one, A, saying my kids don't have two loving parents, so that's an indictment on you.
Yeah.
Or I'm not willing to do the work, which is also an indictment on you.
Yeah.
Now, look, I know that there's some kids out there who don't have loving parents. What the fuck do you think we're trying to change in the Order of Man podcast? I'm trying to get men to step up. I want you to step up. I want you to live your life. I want you to be a man. I want you to work with, as best you can, the consequences of maybe some poor decisions that you made in life. That's what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
That's the point of the mission, for you to step up as a husband, a father, a business owner, a community leader, all these things. So don't talk to me about some kids. Either those some kids are your children, or those some kids are somebody else's children, in which I recognize that maybe we need to come in collectively as a society and help these children out. I'm talking about your kids. Okay, my children, I have 4. How many do you have, Kip?
6, 7, 6.
6 or 7, maybe more. Who knows?
6.
That would be the same as, dude, like, hold on.
That's a bad sign. You know, I am a loving parent.
I'm talking to you, Kip. You don't even know how many kids you have.
Possible, at least 6.
At least 6, maybe more.
Idiot.
I don't know where I was going. You guys all get it. Who knows? All right. Look,
it's been a tough morning, actually.
It has. It's been a day. It's been a day. All right. The point is, guys, here at the end of the day is like, take care of your kids, do what's right by them. It's going to require sacrifice. And, you know, those kids who don't have the luxury that your children do because you're involved, and hopefully you're working to become more involved. We need to take care of those guys. And so we step up and we coach sports, and we coach little league teams, and we step up in the community, and we work to serve these individuals, and public school is an option for these kids. But for your kids, you really ought to consider homeschool. There's one other thing, and then we'll get the questions that I said, because I made 2 posts about homeschool today.
Yeah.
Which is a rarity. Usually I only do 1 because, like, nobody can handle it. You know, you can't handle 1, let alone 2. Second post I made is, if I was a school teacher, I'm like, all right, look, if I was a school teacher, because I know that there's great school teachers out there. There really are. And what I'm suggesting to you is not an indictment on school teachers broadly. There are some scumbag school teachers, 100%.
For sure.
And there are some incredible, lovely, beautiful, courageous school teachers that are working in a broken system. To me, it's like you have this like disgusting, rotted, gross tree, and there's one limb that is like beautiful, and it's working on overtime trying to produce the best fruit, but the tree is entirely rotten. And this tree is just this limb is doing everything it can to produce beautiful apples or pears or oranges or whatever. And the whole tree is rotten. And it's like the last the last like resort, the thing that's holding on the last. And I made a post and I said, if I was a school teacher, what I would do is I would leave government schooling immediately. I would pick up 10 students, 10, just 10 in my immediate community. I would charge $1,500 a month. So if I'm doing my math correctly, this is not Common Core. This is like my math. $1,500 a month times 10. If my math serves me correctly, that's $15,000 a month. If my math serves me correctly, times 12 annually is $180,000. So you're making just under 200 grand a year, just under $250,000 per year. And you're working with 10 children, and you're serving them, and you're loving on them, and you're teaching them truth, and you're serving your community, and you're quadrupling, if not, I don't even know the term, quintupling your income. And you give them personalized attention, and you cater their schooling based on what they need to know. And you don't work with them. Let's just say hypothetically, they go from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So that's 9 hours times 5. That's 45 hours. Again, I'm not using Common Core, so I could be wrong, but to me, the math comes to 180 hours per month if there's 4 weeks in a year in that month. And instead of doing 180 hours, you're doing 100 hours because you're not doing assemblies and you're not doing bullshit.
Yeah.
And you're not transferring
you could
class
be
to
way
class.
more efficient than that. Yeah.
And you're not undoing what Joe Schmo, woke, Mr. Woke over here. You're not undoing all his bullshit or her bullshit or they bullshit, because I think that's the pronoun we're supposed to use. And so you have to like radically change everything they just learned for the last 2 hours. And now instead of 180 hours per week, you're doing 100 hours per week. You're making more money. You're serving these kids better. The community is better served. That's hard for a school teacher because you've been indoctrinated and you don't want to hear that.
Yeah. Well, and I think some school teachers might hear this like, that's really great, but I couldn't, or maybe I couldn't get those 10 students. And I would suggest
10?
you could.
Come on, bro.
Dude, the teachers as a parent, the teachers that are amazing, if like giving a perfect example, we're pulling Kika and Kulani probably out next year and working with one of those schools from Matt, the private school that Matt does. And we're a little to the same teacher that Kika had when she was in 4th grade, just said that she's still doing 4th grade and is curious about Kalani. And we're like, oh wait, she's so great. And so now we're thinking about keeping her around with that teacher because that teacher was so amazing. If that same teacher said, hey, I'm doing my own thing, we'd be like, awesome.
I'm in.
Sign us up. Yeah. Because once you get an amazing teacher, it's like, it's everything.
Yep.
They're so good. So
Miss Gwen is one of our favorite teachers. I think 3 of my children have worked with Miss Gwen. She was a kindergarten teacher, preschool and kindergarten, private, right? Private.
Yeah. Yep.
She's awesome, So anyways, all right. Well, soapbox, step down.
On that note, before we get started, do you want to throw out URLs really quick for Man Uncaged, just so that's upfront and personal and so guys know about it, because that's a limited window. Yeah.
So guys, thank you for bringing that up. We have an event this weekend. It's this Saturday. So that's going to be May 7th. It's called Man Uncaged. So I'm going to be speaking. Kip's going to be there. John Lovell's going to be speaking. Bedros Koulian's going to be speaking. Jack Donovan's going to be speaking. Tanner Guzzley's going to be speaking. Matt Boudreau's going to be speaking. Stephen Mansfield's going to be speaking. This is a powerhouse lineup. So you can do one of two things. If you're in the Sacramento, California area, and if you are, I don't know if you listen to this podcast, actually, if you're in California.
It's further up north. It's further up north. You're good.
It is. Okay, fair. So like you're Northern California, not the same. We're going to be in the Sacramento, Roseville area, May 8th. Go to manuncaged.com/live. You can pick up your ticket there. The second option is if you're not in the California area, which I don't blame you. I commend you. then you can do the virtual conference, which is free virtual conference. Orderaman.com. Excuse me. So he's just saying that. manuncaged.com. I think that's it. manuncaged.com. And you'll have access to the virtual conference, which you can attend when we have unlimited seats there. So if you want to come rub shoulders with all of us, me, of course, right? Like, of course. Yeah. But some of these other guys who, are kind of cool, then you could do the live manuncaged.com/live, or you can do the manuncaged.com, which will take you to the virtual ticket.
Yeah. Come on site. Help me hackle. Harass these guys.
Bro, there's nothing you can say I haven't heard. I promise you that.
Good times. All right. Should we jump into it?
Let's do it.
Facebook.com.
Yes, go ahead.
/group/order man. Go ahead.
Nope, that's it. I'm on your time now, Kip.
Okay. Andrew Workman, how did your kids handle your move to Maine? My plans for the future and where I see my dictate a move to a different state. And if not dictating the move, a move may make the endeavors more successful. But I worry about the impact of my family and my kids. Some extended family would go with us, but the kids' cousins wouldn't. Thoughts, recommendations?
Good question. Two things. Number one, it doesn't matter. You're the adult.
Do what's best for your family.
You're the adult. Your kids don't know. Your kids are dumb. Okay, they're dumb. They're ignorant and they're dumb. It's like a double whammy. Yeah. Just like mine are. I'm not calling your kids dumb. Like, oh, Kip's kids are so dumb. Like, oh, no, like all dumb. Of our kids are dumb. Okay, my kids are dumb. Your kids are dumb. Like, the cool thing that we have in common is that all our kids are stupid. Okay. So what? You are the dad. Your wife is the mom. You make the decisions. Culturally, it's like, oh, well, tell me what, like you have a penis, but you feel like you should have a vagina. Oh, tell me about it. Oh, maybe I should, care about that. No, like if your boy has a penis, then he's a boy. If your daughter has a vagina, then she's a girl. Like I have boys and a daughter and they are what they are. Like you don't get to tell me, you don't get to dictate the tone of the conversation. All right. Let me get that out of the way. How did our kids handle it? We worked very closely with them about the pros and the cons. We didn't lie to them. We told them the truth, which is that in many ways it's going to be good. You're going to have some wonderful opportunities. We have some land to stretch out on, and we're going to play and we're going to laugh and we're going to joke and we're going to do this all together. And you're going to have to leave your friends and you're going to have to make new friends. And you're going to have to change your lifestyle because we went from public school to homeschool. And it's going to be sacrificial in a lot of ways. And that's the trade-off. Like you don't get your cake and eat it too. You got to choose. And here's what we've chose to do. And so the better that my wife and I have been involved in the process, the more that we can engage them in a meaningful and significant way, not only for us, but for them. My oldest is like, he's all about hunting. And so he's like, Dad, can we do a food plot? Yeah, absolutely. We can do that. My daughter's like, hey, I'd like to dance. Cool. Let's find you a dance studio in the area. And it's 45 minutes away. Every Wednesday night, my wife drives my daughter 45 minutes away to go to the dance studio. And she has little girlfriends and they play and they laugh and they dance together. And one of them that's her best friend in the world, quote unquote, best friend in the world is moving to Oregon and she got her number and she's going to talk with her or whatever. Kids are resilient. Okay. Kids are going to learn from you. They're going to see how you handle it. And then they're going to bounce back and they're going to get on their feet in a new environment. So be aware of what they're struggling with. I got to be honest. My second son, not totally on board with the move. I could see him being back in Utah and just living his best life. And at some point, maybe he will. Maybe he'll move back or, maybe he'll move somewhere else. And he loves the city and he gets energized by it. And he's like, he just loves it. I'm like, I don't love it at all, but he loves it. And so he's going to have to make some changes probably in the next, he's 11. So in the next 6 or 7 years. And so like, that's okay. Like you can make those changes, but here's the experience that we're having now. So it's really about the experience that you're that you're having. But the one thing I would say is don't place too much weight on how your kids will deal with it, because that becomes an excuse. Your kids will deal with it to the degree that you can.
Yeah, totally.
And so this afternoon I get done. So it's about noon here, and I've got a call right after this that I've got to get on. So that'll put me about 1 o'clock Eastern. And my kids are like, "Hey Dad, can we go shoot the 22?" Absolutely. We can go do that. And that'll take us an hour, and then I can go back and do some work. But like, this is the beauty of what we've created here. You can make it work in any environment.
Totally. I'm sure this is the case for you too, Ryan, where some of the most memorable experiences of my life were the difficult scenarios of when I was a kid. They're the scenarios I would have avoided as a kid. And most parents would have tried to like shield me from, but because I was exposed to them, they're some of the most memorable things I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah.
So you don't know a move's not going to be that, right? So
yeah, the kids are, and you, by the way, the kids and you are going to be fine wherever you are. So in our church, and Kip, you and I share a similar faith. We host a testimonial meeting, is what it's called, on the first Sunday of each month.
Yeah.
And that testimonial is no bishop or no priest or nobody else is coming up to give us a sermon, but that testimonial meeting is opened up to the church congregation. And so on a voluntary basis, people get up and they speak about their relationship with Christ and their relationship with God and the things they've been dealing with. And one of the things that I used to hear a lot is, I really pray. I've been trying to figure out where I need to move, and I've been really praying for an answer. And God said, and I personally, I really take issue with that, Kip. I don't know how you feel about that. Like, God actually doesn't care where you live.
I think he's a lot more hands off than I think most people think. But
yeah.
And it's because that's how you learn and grow.
It's because he loves you, because he's like, you need to make your decisions. And so I don't think God said to you, well, you should move to Maine. I think God said to me personally that if Maine's where you feel like you want to go, I will support you in that. And I will present opportunities and I will give you guidance and direction. But if Maine's somewhere you feel like you need to go, then I have your back. I think that's what God has said to me.
Yeah.
But I don't think God said you should move to Maine. Because it could be Maine, it could be Nebraska, it could be Oregon, it could be Colorado, it could be Montana, it could be any of these states. And God's like, no, wherever you move, like, I've got your back. Like, I'm going to help you. And it's the same with schooling. It's the same with education. It's the same with moving your kids. Like, wherever your kids are, like, you have their back. And there's going to be pros and cons. And so it's okay. Like, you have their back. They'll be okay. They'll be fine. You support them. You do what needs to be done as a father. You would not be asking this question if you didn't feel like you had the capacity to do it or you wanted the desire to do it. You guys will be okay. You really will. You'll be better. You'll actually be better because you did something challenging together. And that's meaningful and that's significant.
Bob Ross, people ask all the time for book references.
Hold on.
I'd like to know.
The guy's name is Bob Ross. That's awesome.
Bob Ross. Yeah, I can pronounce that correctly. So I know that's right.
Well, you know who Bob Ross is.
Sorry, Bob. Who's Bob Ross? Oh, man.
I'm not even going to say anything. I can't even.
I'll pretend to not be distracted and Google Bob Ross. Or are you trying to trick me into Googling Bob Ross?
Bro, I can't even. I don't know if we can continue.
Oh, the Happy Tree guy?
Yes. Come on. I'm not even
I didn't even know his name.
It's Bob Ross. I'm not even sure we can continue to do this podcast together. All right. Go ahead and ask the question.
Right. Happy
call
Tree
Sean
guy
for next week.
People ask all the time for book references. I would like to know what a short story or poem that resonates with you and why.
A short story or
Or
poem?
poem. Yeah. I come prepared in case you didn't, because I thought about this and I thought, well, maybe I'll pull up something, but
Well, there's a couple of things. So one that always inspires me, it's right up here on my wall, is Theodore Roosevelt's Man in the Arena. So that's kind of a quick snippet. There's another one. Let me read this to you. So this one comes from my second son, very artistic. Um, yeah, just very interested in the arts, written, spoken, drawn, whatever. Very interested in the arts, music. This one's called Living Statue. Living Statue. He wrote this probably 3 years ago when he was maybe 8 or 9 years old. He says, and I've got it framed. I should show you guys sometime. I've got it framed and posted. He says, I think I'm right. I think I'm wrong. I didn't listen to the statue rules. Let's see. I'll go with the flow. Oh, excuse me. So I'll go with the flow, go slow as an alpaca. That's it. Let me just read it one time because I butchered it. I think I'm right. This is called Living Statue. I think I'm right. I think I'm wrong. I didn't listen to the statue rules. So I'll go with the flow, go slow as an alpaca. And one time I asked him, I said, what does that mean? I'm like, what are you even getting at here?
yeah.
He's like, well, Dad, I don't know. And I'm paraphrasing. He said, sometimes I'm like, I feel like I'm doing the right thing, but then it doesn't feel right. And sometimes when I feel like I do the quote unquote wrong thing, I feel like I'm also right. And I didn't listen to these statue rules. And I'm like, what do you mean by the statue rules? He's like, I don't know. Like statues are like frozen, like somebody's telling you what to do. And like, it's immovable. I'm like, okay. And he says, but I didn't want to follow those rules. I wanted to be different. And alpacas are weird. That's what he said. Alpacas are weird and they're different and they're not like,
they're unique. Yeah.
they're unique. They're not like a real, like a normal animal. And so I wanted to be like that. I'm like, bro, you're 9 years old. You shouldn't be thinking about this stuff. But awesome. He's right. Like he's 100% right. Like, I think I'm right. I think I'm wrong. He's conflicted.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't listen to the statute rules. I didn't listen to what everybody else, all the authorities told me what to do. So I think I'm going to go with my own rules. I'm going to do my own, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to go slow as an alpaca because an alpaca doesn't care. It just spits on your ass when you like try to get in its face. Okay. Like, bro, like he drew this on a little piece of paper, like an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And I reached out to my designer and I said, I need you to like do this. And he's got a picture of an alpaca. I'm looking at it right now. He's got a picture of an alpaca. And I said, I need you to just put this together. And we have 3 or 4 of them written around the house. That stuff's powerful, man. Yeah. Powerful. It's like one of my favorite poems. And it's from my son, my second son, when he was probably, like I said, 8 or 9 years old.
I find it interesting around 8 or 9. All of my kids have expressed the conflict of right and wrong, like logically in their head around that age. And it's always fascinates me. They're like, oh, I feel tempted. Like they don't use the word tempted though. Other thoughts enter my mind and I want to do the wrong thing. You know what I mean? It's really interesting. It's always around that age.
Yeah, it is. They start to claim some, well, what we talked about is sovereignty.
Yeah.
Right. They start to gain some control over their life and see that they are autonomous creatures, that they aren't required to follow what we follow as their father. So it's kind of an interesting point in their life.
Yeah.
Can I say one other thing on that, Kip?
Yeah.
Like when you talk about poems or short stories, I have all sorts of stuff up in my office that reminds me of that. So I've got Theodore Roosevelt. I've got my son right here. I've got one by Jason Reese. It says, when nothing seems to help, I go and look at the stonecutter hammering away at his rock. perhaps 100 times without as much as cracking a crack showing in it. Yet at the 101st blow, it will split in two. And I know it was not the blow that blow that did it, but all the blows that had gone before. I've got a code of conduct up here. Like I've got stuff in my office that reminds me of what I need to be reminded of in order to do the things that, I want to do in life.
Love it. All right. Dylan Beaudry, tips for finding contentment in a job that doesn't challenge you or push you in your respective field, but pays the bills.
Well, paying the bills is great. That's a virtuous thing. But I think what you might be doing, and I don't want to put words in your mouth or jump to conclusions, is I think what you might be doing is assuming that it's your job's responsibility to give you meaningful challenge, and it isn't. And so you're wondering when again, I'm guessing because I don't know the backstory, but you might be sitting there wondering when your job is going to give you something that's meaningful or significant. What I would suggest to you is go find it. Like what charges you, what energizes you, what gaps do you see, what challenges is the business dealing with, what struggles, how could they make more money, how could they serve their clients better, like all these questions you could be asking. And then you could go to, if you were my boss, Kip, I'd go to you and I'd say, hey, Mr. Kip, here's the things that we're doing very, very well, and here's the reasons I actually like being part of this company. We're doing all these cool things. But what I noticed is that there was this really interesting, I went through all of our social media profiles and accounts and questions, and there was this reoccurring trend, and people were asking about X, Y, and Z. And I thought, man, what a great opportunity. We've never even considered that before. And so I've put together ABC, which I think would help address this. Have you guys ever addressed this before? And he would say, yes, we have. And here's why it didn't work. And say, oh, okay, well, here's why I think maybe we can reevaluate it. Or he might say that, no, well, actually, we've never addressed that before. And say, okay, great. Well, with your permission, and I'm not asking for you to pay me more or like nothing in return, but with your permission, I would really like to start tackling this. Would you be okay with that? And then you get the permission and you start building out your own position. I don't know what it is. I'm speaking generally and broadly. Like, I don't know what your manager's like, or your boss, but these are ways that I would personally bring it to the table. In fact, I have done that. Like when I worked in retail, I saw issues that we had with the way our store was set up. And so I brought it from a manager, and fortunately she was very receptive to that. And I did it tactfully, but she was very receptive to that. And that helped me develop this leadership capacity. There was also things in my financial planning practice. And this is a very important lesson. So I was trained by a bunch of what I would call old timers. Okay. These are guys that are probably 60 plus years old in the financial planning service. And they've been in the business for at least a quarter of a century, if not more, 3-4 decades. And I went to them and I'm like, hey, have you guys ever tried like doing digital marketing? Digital marketing. Oh, wow. What are you talking about? Have you guys ever tried a podcast? Oh, podcast. Oh, that's stupid. Oh, what are you talking about? I'm like, okay, well, clearly these guys aren't on board. They all were kind of overweight and they were all slightly balding, and their chairs were a little higher than either my chair as somebody walking to their office or their client's chair. You guys know exactly who I'm talking to. And I said, you fools, not to them, obviously face to face, but in my head, I'm like, you fools, you sit in your ivory towers and you look down on me and you look down on your clients. You guys are foolish. And so I said, well, I'm going to start a podcast. And you know what those companies that I was working with did? They said, well, we're not totally comfortable with this. You need to submit everything that you're going to talk about. You need to submit us a script every week, so our old ass people can look at that script and make sure you're saying the things that are approved. And you know what I said? Fuck you. I'm not doing that. Here's what I'm doing. And they said, well, Ryan, well, you can't do your podcast. And you know what I said? Good. I'll go start a different podcast. And guess what I did? The Order of Man podcast. And here we are 7 years later doing this because a bunch of old, decrepit men who thought they had it figured out didn't have it figured out. And guess who's running laps around those people now? Me. So when a guy says, well, like, I don't know what to do, like, you create the solution and it might lead you to a betterment in your current business. It didn't for me. The hires up, the powers that be rejected it for me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not for me, unfortunately for them, because I could have made them quite literally billions and billions of dollars, like literally billions of dollars, but they didn't accept it. And so I said, see you later. And now we are here with Order of Man doing something that wasn't even on the radar 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Create the solutions to your problems. They're there. And if people don't believe in you, good. Believe in yourself. And there are going to be people and there have been people who have believed in me.
Yeah.
Kip, you've been with me for a long time. You believed in me. You didn't have a reason to do that. You might have a reason now. And if you join now, I might say, well, okay, like I might question a little bit more, but you believed in me when nobody else did.
Yeah.
Or very few people did. I should say that. That's more fair. When very few people did.
Yeah. And I think the key thing here too, Ryan, is just to be really clear, at least for me, you got to be killing it in what your current responsibilities are. And that's really that's the confirmation of willingness to let someone like see an idea and run with it, because I know that them running with this idea would be beneficial. Why? Because they have the right work ethic, because they're committed, you know what I mean? They work hard or whatever. But if you're mediocre in what you're currently doing now and you're disenfranchised and you're just doing the bare minimum, and then you come to the table and go, this great idea, I'm going to go, yeah, you can't even do what you're doing today well. So why would we give you more? Right? Because then I'm thinking you're just the guy that's chasing a shiny object, and this is exciting. And eventually, once it's not exciting anymore, you're not going to do a good job.
No, I agree. I think that's 100% right. So double down on what you're doing. But I will throw one caveat to that, Kip, and I'd like to hear your feedback on this, is like, just because you're killing it in whatever you're doing doesn't mean they're going to see the vision of what you'd like to do.
Yeah. You still run that risk.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. And some of it, I mean, and don't get me wrong, there's some value, right? Like it could mean your boss is closed-minded. It could mean you failed at pitching the idea well enough for them to connect to it. Right. So, as with most things, be slow to judge and, it's my boss, and maybe evaluate a little bit and say, well, did I articulate that well enough for him to get on board? Right. So
I actually hear this a lot in the relationship aspect of life. So we had Terry Crews on last week, and one of the things Terry talks about, and
that was super fun conversation, by the way.
Such a cool conversation. Yeah. I mean, the guy is actually, well, I say actually because I don't think it's that common. He's very down to earth. Yeah. He's very humble. And he's very supportive. He comments on Instagram with me. I could probably text him and he would text right back. I got a message from somebody that had, I'm not going to disclose what he said, but he disclosed a very heartfelt message, and I forwarded it without the names because I want to be discreet there.
Because of the impact that the conversation had on him.
Yeah, it was an impact that it had with him, and he did something in his own personal life based on that conversation. And I took that, I screenshotted it, and I took it without his name on it or identifying information, and I sent it to Terry, and Terry's like, oh my goodness. He sent me like a very incredible message back. And so like he's very heartfelt. He's very engaged in what we're doing here. I can't remember where I was going with that right offhand, but do you remember what we were talking about right before that?
Right before that, we're talking about, don't be too quick to assume like, oh, my boss doesn't understand. Take some ownership in regards to being clear and concise on your message or your pitch. And then you brought up the conversation with Terry.
Yeah. Gosh, dang. I got distracted because no, it's not you. I just got distracted because I was thinking about like, that's not common for somebody to do that. Unfortunately, I wish it were more common, but he's one of the few, and there have been, but they're one of the few individuals who actually did that. Maybe I'll remember it later. I just lost my train of thought. So I might pull it back up.
Okay. Mark Mancuso, how to properly balance a masculine life when a spouse, his wife, has a career that pays 10 times what he makes. In fact, me trying to make money definitely hinders family life. I am okay with it, but it does bug me a little bit.
I get it. I actually get it.
Yeah, me too. It would bother me too, but
I know that the common theme is to be like, well, so what? She makes more than you, but put yourself in that situation for a minute.
Well, as men, we love, I mean, whether good or bad, and we could probably have a whole conversation on whether it's good or bad or not, but a lot of us measure our value of as a man in our ability to provide for our families, right? Like that's one of the things that we do, right? I mean,
of course it should be. That's what we talk about.
Yeah.
All right. But what do we do with this? I get it. Bro, I empathize with you kind of, but then at the same time, like, damn, your wife's making 10 times. That's awesome.
Yeah. What are you bitching about, man? Come on.
Totally. Like I see both sides of this. I really do. And I'm trying to be very honest. That's one of my goals for this quarter is just to be more honest. And like I made a post about how charming Joe Biden was in his presentation with no.
When?
His speech at the press conference. Like he was very charming, like very good. And everybody's like, I'm going to lose my mind. And I'm like, no, we got to be honest. Like he was pretty charming. That was also, by the way, that's also the most dangerous he is when he's charming because then he fools everybody.
Yeah.
But he was charming. Like we got to be honest. And so with this guy, I got to be honest. I'm like, man, I get that. I feel that. Like when your wife's making more than you and she's like, quote unquote, being more of a man than you are. Like I feel it.
I think it's fulfillment.
Explain.
I'm just thinking if I were Mark, right? Why do I put value associated to my ability to provide? And it's because it gives me fulfillment. It's a form of fulfillment in regards to I'm making an impact and I'm making a difference. So if I'm not making a difference and impact financially for my family, then I have to be about something. So you better figure out what the other mission is, right? The other way that you're being fulfilled in life, knowing you're killing it. Like that's the answer, right? You got to be killing it in life. So if killing it's not 10x financially, then, and let's be honest, a lot of us listening could be killing it financially and not really killing it in life too, right? Like that's not everything. And so maybe the answer, or at least my thought is find another mission and start getting after it and leave a lasting impact. And maybe it's not in how much money comes in through the door at your home, but it's elsewhere.
Period. Like put a stamp on it. I don't think I could have said that better myself, kid.
Well, thank you.
I mean, I probably could have, but I was just saying that to be nice.
I know.
No, I don't think I could have. When you were saying that, I'm like, yeah, that's like bingo. That's exactly right. The only thing I would add is what could that actually look like?
Yeah. How do you connect to that and figure that out? Yeah. But maybe even your financial, I mean, one thought really quick is your wife's killing it financially. You might be in a position to do something that a lot of guys can't do. You know, a lot of us are wrapped up into the financial side of things, making ends meet, and we can't go after the other thing. Well, maybe you can due to that financial benefit that you have. So
what would be the other
blessing,
thing,
maybe?
Kip?
Well, back to your question, what are the other things? I've heard you say this, but I think it's the things that light you up. So me personally, find a problem, something that pisses you off or gets you super excited, and find a problem and make it yours, whatever that is. So if you get fired 100%. Up by homelessness, you get fired by child abuse, you get fired up by whatever social thing that's happening in the world, take it by the horns and make it your problem. That's a good place to start.
Totally agree. I mean, for me personally, the things that would come to mind would be, man, what if I could just like pour fully into coaching youth sports for boys specific for me. Yeah. I'm not saying this needs to be for you, but for me, like, what if I could pour fully into coaching youth sports for young men and not only teach them sports, but teach them all the life lessons they need to know through the basketball court or the football field or the baseball diamond. And like, what if I could do that? What if I was free to do that? Man, you're free to do that. Your wife's crushing. Now, look, you need to get her buy-in, right? Because she's an integral part of this, obviously, financially. But you're wrapping up your identity into income, and I do too. Like guess what? My wife doesn't work outside of the home, so she literally has zero income coming in. So with our dynamic, it's my dynamic. It's not yours. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. But with our dynamic, I pull in 100% of the income. Kip, you probably pull in, if I had to guess, maybe what, like 70 to 90% of the income?
Yep.
And that's your dynamic. And it's not wrong or right. That's just what your dynamic is. And so I pull 100%. But if she's pulling in 80 to 90, okay, well, what are you going to do with the 20? Well, you got to decide. And then you got to get her on board. You got to sell that to her because she's an integral part of this. Just like if my wife says, hey, here's what I want to do. Her big thing right now is pigs. And she's like, I want to buy a couple pigs. I'm like, cool. You need to sell me on that because I'm the one that's got to pay for it.
Yeah.
I'm the one that has to pay for feed and all this stuff. Now you have time invested, sure, but I got to pay financially. There's an investment on my part. So you got to sell me on that. And she will, and she'll, tell me for whatever reason. And I'm like, okay, cool. That makes sense. Or, hun, I don't think this is the right time. And I have said that for the last couple of years, like, no, like, let's get our feet under us and then we can talk about it. And now she's like, no, I really want to do this. I'm like, okay, well, like, sell me on it. Well, you might need to explain to her why this is the thing that you need to do. And you're a team. Yeah. And that is the interesting thing about teams. So here's a conversation I've had with my wife is occasionally and I just said it actually. It's like, well, it's my money. Is it? Is it? Because if I remember correctly, 18 years ago, I said, we are now one. So is it my money? No, actually, no. It's ours.
Yeah.
And when she says, well, these are my bees, are they your bees? Are they? Or are they ours? Right. And so I fall into it of like, well, totally. And I tease and sometimes I take it too far, but I do tease it. I'm like, well, like you can do whatever you want, but just remember it's my income that's paying for that. I'm like, okay, I'm teasing her about it. Okay. But like, it's not my income. It's ours. Well, and then other guys, the manosphere guys will say, well, how come it's hers? Because I already agreed. I'm a man of my word. I already said.
Yeah. Well, and we identified who's doing what. And so part of what she does allows me the freedom and time to go to the office and focus on bringing income in. I can't do that if she's not at home watching kids. Like that's impossible, right? Like my morning was crazy because she's actually out of town. And I'm getting kids ready. You know what I mean? So part of my success, a great deal of my success is a result of her doing her part, right? Just like Trish is really getting great at, or is great at gardening. Why? because your role helps support her in doing that, just like what she does helps support you in your podcast. Like, and me and Asia do this all the time because we're kind of competitive by default, which is not probably really healthy for our relationship.
Actually, it probably is. It's probably a good thing for your relationship.
But and that pendulum swings sometimes, right? And she'll kind of get attached, like, well, how am I financially versus am I, babe, us. This is our game, right? This is not mine. This is not yours. This is ours. Now, once I get a new truck, that will definitely be mine. But other than that, everything else. No,
cute, Kip. let me say it this way. All right, let's put it this way. I'm just going to use some arbitrary numbers, but I think it'll help with the math.
Okay.
Again, numbers. You guys will get the point. Let's say your wife makes $100,000. And you make 10 a year, and you make 10,000 a year doing whatever it is you do. That's $110,000 a year. Okay. Now let's look at this. Let's say that you said to your wife, hey, hon, I really only want you working 50% of the time, so I could work twice as much. So now she makes $50,000 and you make $20,000. So you went from $110,000 to, if my math serves me correctly, $70,000. You almost cut your pay in half because your stupid ego got in the way.
Yeah. Totally.
Now, on the other hand, you said, hey, hon, like, you're better at this.
Yeah. Or you're in a career or an industry
whatever.
that has a way higher probability of bringing in better income than mine. Yeah.
Right. So here's what I'm going to do. And I don't think that I really don't think that men should stay home with their kids exclusively. Like, I actually really don't think that's a good scenario.
Because we suck at it.
Because we suck at it. And I mean, anecdotally, it's just horrible. I love my kids.
My kids are begging for mom to get home.
Yeah. So like, you'll need to go out and find something in addition to, but like, let's not let our ego get in the way, because if you could either collectively make $110,000 together, I'm actually kind of thinking through this as I'm talking about it, but you can make $110,000 together, or you can make $70,000 together. Well, cool. I choose 110 because that's an extra $40,000. That's almost, what is that? Like $3,500 a year? Maybe 3,300 a year that I'm like, a month. That like, that's a 3,300. Cool. Like, go buy 3 rental properties with $3,300 a month.
Yeah.
And now you turn that into, in this market, 7,
and you're managing
9,000
those now, and now you got your thing. Yeah.
Come on now. Like, let's get our ego out of the way. All right, let's take one more, Kip.
Okay. Matthew Estes, how does a father balance a career where he's gone from home half the month, every month? Is it worth it to find a more simple job where he can be home every day, or continue his dream job and be gone half the time? So he threw in that dream job in there. So
I didn't expect that. That was a curveball.
Yeah.
Because usually what we'll
without
get,
dream job, you're like, priorities, but now it's a dream job.
Yeah, that's a curveball. Because usually and okay, here's what I'm going to say. Here, I'm going to challenge you. Is it really?
Or is it comfortable and it's what you know?
Yeah. So like, I don't know. We'll take it at face value, but I want you to ask that question. Are you just saying dream job because you're making good money? Okay. Like, I need you to ask that question, but let's take it at face value that it is your dream job. Our motto is protect, provide, preside. Right? Like, we've been very clear about that for over 7 years now. And if you look at each one of those components, protect, provide, and preside, which is synonymous with leadership, there is an element of sacrifice in all of those things. And you think, and I thought, and Kip, I know you have, and a lot of men listening to this, is think that we get to have our cake and eat it too. And you don't.
Yeah.
You
I have to
don't.
remind myself constantly that like there's a price always.
There's a price.
Yeah.
There's a price. And I'm not going to tell you whether or not you should pay that price. That isn't my job. You are the patriarch. You are the man. It is your job to determine whether or not that price is something you're willing to pay. And for me, so I'm just going to tell you what I would feel. Let's just hypothetically say I was making $200,000 a year in my dream job. And I decided, because I made the decision to bring kids into the world. I did make that decision. Contrary to popular belief, we all know how kids come into the world. I made that decision to, well, we don't need to go graphic, but I made that decision. And whether or not I realized the cost of that decision, I still made it. And so maybe that means that I'm going to need to sacrifice my dream job of $200,000 a year and take $100,000 a year. And my dream has changed. My priorities have changed. But there's also circumstances when your wife says, this goes to the last question, where your wife is like, no, like, I think you should pursue that dream. We're making plenty of income over here. But she's part of the deal. It's now a package deal. Do you remember that when you were kids, like when you were playing soccer or like dodgeball or, you know, Red Rover on the playground during recess, and you had your best friend and you're like, well, if you choose me, you choose him. We're a package deal. You remember that?
Yeah. Because you want to be on the same team. Doesn't matter.
Right, because you're a package deal. It ain't you or them. No, you at some point, because you married her, said, no, we're a package deal.
Yeah.
And so that means that, look, if I'm at recess and I'm like, nope, me and Kip, we're buddies. We're a package deal. You pick me, then you get Kip. If you don't pick us, then you don't get either of us. And you know what? That might play to our favor in some instances, and it might not play to our favor in some instances, but none of that matters, because I already decided we're a package deal. Like, you get me, you get him. You get him, you get me. Package deal. No questions asked.
Yeah.
And at this stage in your life, you know, if somebody said to me, hey, Ryan, you could choose order of man or my wife, easy decision. Easy all day long. I'll make that decision for order of man. That's a joke for my wife. Okay. All day long. No questions asked. We're a package deal. This is what I bring into the equation. This is what she brings, and it works. But if any instance came and said, hey, you need to choose this or your wife, I already made that decision. I made that decision almost 2 decades ago. There are no questions. There's no thought about it. I already thought about it. It's already inked into the deal. So ask yourself if you really committed to your wife and your family, or did you just commit based on some contingencies? So I wrote this book that's coming out later this fall, and they paid me up front. They paid me a signing bonus, which was nice and hefty, and that feels really good. They believe in me. And then they're going to pay me a little bit more based on the books that I sell. And they said to me, hey, Ryan, we're going to ink this into your contract. And if you sell XYZ amount of books, then we're going to pay you a little bit more. And if you sell this many books, we'll pay you this much more. These are all contingencies. And I like those contingencies because there's no downside potential. There's only upside potential. But in your marriage, there's no contingency.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine saying, like, a pastor saying, hey, you know, Ryan, Patrick Mickler and Trisha Ann Mickler, you are, you know, joined together in holy matrimony, unless a hotter babe comes along, and then that's cool.
Yeah.
That's not what they say.
Yeah, it's all in.
All in, 100%.
Yeah.
So what are you in for? Are you in for your dreams or are you in for her? And is she your dream? My wife's my dream. Man, I come home. I came home today. We have a, Kip, because you've been out to our place several times, and there's this inside of a barn. That's the door I come in. I walk through our barn every day. And then there's this window, and this window is a mud room. And then beyond that window, or beyond that mud room, is the laundry room. And I got into that window, and I didn't open the door because the mud room door was open and my wife was in there doing laundry. And I was just staring at her for a minute.
Creep.
Totally. And I just watched her for a minute, and I knocked on the door. So I got her attention, and she like bent over the laundry machine, like doing laundry, but also being sexual, which was like, she's doing my laundry, but she's also being sexual. Like, this is amazing. And that's my dream, bro. Like, she's my dream. And my kids are my dream. And the job supports it.
Dream. Yeah.
That's it. So I'm getting a little emotional here. If the job needs to change for the dream to be realized, then so be it. But you, Kip, are not my dream.
No.
My dream is her and my kids. And I'll do whatever I need to do to ensure that I get the dream. And walking into my barn and seeing my wife and her teasing me and playing with me or playing with the kids or outside doing her garden, bro, that's my dream. That's my dream. Everything else supports it. Period. That's all I got, man.
Excellent. All right, gentlemen. Connect with us online, facebook.com/group/Order of Man. And of course, learn about the Iron Council. We'll be opening that back up probably later this month. So stay tuned, stay connected, sign up for a newsletter to get notified appropriately, orderofman.com/Iron Council. And of course, connect with Mickler on Insta and Twitter at Ryan Mickler. And just a reminder on the Uncaged, Man Uncaged event this weekend, that's manuncaged.com, or for the live event for streaming, that's manuncaged.com/live.
That's it, man. Still a little emotionally thinking about that. So
That's what matters.
Yeah, man. That's always been what matters. Figure out what your dream is, like what your real dream is. Dream job is like part of the equation. And I'm not going to tell you that following a dream job isn't your dream. I don't know what your dream is. I just know what mine is. And I know what I can get myself distracted with. And I get myself distracted with work. I think a lot of us as men do. I can distract myself. Yeah, it's easy. It's simple. Maybe it's not easy. Our work is hard, right? But it's simple. Yeah. It's like, I can measure performance. I can measure income. I can measure getting out of debt. Like, I can measure all these things. But how do I measure, my wife shaking her ass at me when I'm peeking through the door as a creeper? How do I measure the connection I have with my children? I don't know how to do that. I wish I could tell you it's this formula. I wish it would be so much easier, so much simpler. It just doesn't work like that, man. So lots of things to think about for myself today. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you. We'll be back on Friday. I'm going to talk about homeschooling on Friday because that's an important topic. And until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.